Today's edition of CNN 10 explains why our American viewers are a little more tired than usual this Monday and how they have a little more evening daylight to look forward to. I'm Carl Azus. First, the Democratic Republic of Congo, a large country in Central Africa, is struggling with the second largest outbreak of the Ebola virus ever. There have been more than 900 cases in the DRC since last August. Ebola is highly contagious for people who've had contact with the bodily fluids, like blood, of others who've had it. It causes fever, severe headaches, sometimes severe bleeding. And despite the fact that an experimental vaccine is now available, as well as new medications for Ebola patients, 574 people, more than half of those who've contracted Ebola in this latest outbreak, have died. Ongoing conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo only creates another problem for health workers who are trying to stop the spread of the disease. There are dozens of militias in the northeastern DRC where this Ebola outbreak is. Militants attacked a treatment center on Saturday, killing a police officer and wounding a medical worker. And 2 attacks on Ebola clinics last month forced the aid group Doctors Without Borders to put some of its efforts on hold. Experts say some Congolese don't understand Ebola and don't get treatment for it until it's too late. The New York Times reports that there's sometimes distrust of medical workers and that Congolese don't want people from other countries interfering with local funeral traditions. All of these challenges together makes it more difficult for health officials to contain the disease and help those who've caught it. Still, the outbreak that's killed hundreds in Africa's second largest country is a lot smaller than the one that struck West Africa in 2014. The World Health Organization says that outbreak killed more than 11,000 people. Our next story begins with a quote concerning the U.S. stock market. The bull market is showing signs of old age, but it's not dead yet. That was a CNN business headline from August 19th of last year, and the bull market it was talking about lives on. Bulls and bears are used to symbolize conditions on Wall Street. A bull market is when prices are rising, and it's one sign that the U.S. economy is doing well. How long will it last? Well, there's a saying that bull markets and economic expansions don't die of old age. They don't just stop because they've been going on a long time. But if major stock indexes like the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 drop 20% or more from their recent highs, we'll be in what's called a bear market. The question of whether that'll happen anytime soon is something no one knows the answer to.
It is the 10th birthday of the current stock market bull run, the longest in history. A bull rally born on a day when no one was celebrating. March 9th, 2009, when the Standard & Poor's 500 tanked to 676.
Well, for more devastating news for investors, the Dow and the S&P are now down at new 12-year lows.
From recession to recovery, this is what it looks like. The S&P 500 has more than quadrupled. History made all along the way. Stimulus, tax cuts, an auto bailout, a new healthcare law, debt ceiling showdowns, and a credit downgrade of U.S. debt, a budget sequester, and then Democratic control giving way to a GOP hold on Congress, and ultimately the White House. More recently this, the Trump rally, a 40% rise from Election Day to recent highs, riding a wave of job creation, tax cuts, and slashed regulations. And once again, control of the House shifts back to Democrats. The big question, the only question, is will the bull live to see 11 years old? The S&P 500 lost 6.2% in 2018, the worst showing since the Great Recession. And 2019 is a year with 3 big challenges. Uncertainty about the global economy, particularly in Europe and China. Trade tensions between the U.S. and China have yet to be resolved. And investors are worried about interest rates. But the Federal Reserve has pivoted from scheduled rate hikes to a more market-friendly approach of patience, which could keep the life in the bull for a little bit longer.
10-second trivia. During what war did the U.S. officially begin to observe daylight saving time? American Revolution, War of 1812, U.S. Civil War, or World War I? It was in 1918, during the First World War, that the U.S. followed Germany and then Britain in observing daylight saving time. There's a bit of controversy surrounding who first proposed daylight saving time. Some credit U.S. founding father Ben Franklin when he wrote about a schedule switch in an essay. A New Zealand entomologist named George Hudson proposed a time shift in 1895, and William Willett, the great-great-grandfather of Coldplay's lead singer, also gets credit, as you're about to hear, for daylight saving time. But regardless of who's to thank or to blame for it, it's been observed by several countries since the First World War, and getting rid of it, at least in the U.S., would take an act of Congress.
This was a war where every hour counted, on the battlefield and on the home front. By 1916, an old idea had resurfaced, one that was born in Britain near the home of time, the Royal Observatory at Greenwich.
With the publication of a pamphlet called The Waste of Daylight, and this was composed by a very entrepreneurial builder called William Willett, who lived in Chislehurst, which is about 15 kilometres south of Greenwich. And Willett was a keen horse rider, and he used to go for early morning rides in the local woods. And it was on one of these rides that he noticed that all the blinds in the local houses were all down. Everyone seemed to be in bed, and as a very industrious and productive man, he was appalled at this waste of time.
Everyone appreciates the long, light evenings. Everyone laments their shrinkage as the days grow shorter. And nearly everyone has given utterance to a regret that the clear, bright light of early mornings during spring and summer months is so seldom seen or used. Now, if some of the hours of wasted sunlight could be withdrawn from the beginning and added to the end of the day, how many advantages would be gained by all?
Willits died before he saw his idea put into action to save coal for the war effort. But it was adopted at first by the Germans, not the British. Postcards warned the population about the shift and why they owed it to their country not to forget. The British followed a few weeks later and didn't miss a chance for a dig at the Germans. America came on board in 1918. As DST spread around the world, countries adopted it, dumped it, or never tried it. Still, the daylight debate rages every year. The arguments exist whether it helps or harms our health and the economy. While the wartime wisdom of saving energy may no longer apply, for many of us, the long summer evenings still endure. The legacy of a war where so much was lost to give us these freedoms. Jim Bolden, CNN, London.
Package delivery by drone. It could happen sooner than you think, but probably not in the way you think. This is what's currently being tested by a few American companies. Some of them even use self-driving technology. They can carry heavier packages than flying drones, and they won't get in trouble with the Federal Aviation Administration. Will they drop off your order sooner and save delivery companies the expense of that costly last mile? We don't know yet if they'll be able to deliver. They may be packed with features, but to become part and parcel of delivery, they'll need the backing of major companies before they're bundled with a bundle and cartoned off to make a drop-off without dropping off the tracking device that orders them around. A single accident could lead to a bad unboxing, and that's a can of worms no company wants to open. I'm Carl Azus, shipping out another edition of CNN 10.